Hi, my name is Hiro. I make digests of things that I have interest. What is SGI? What is Sokka Gakkai? You may have heard of it, but many of you probably don't know what it actually is. Some think it's a religious group, others think it's an academic institution. In fact, it is a religious movement based on Buddhism. I'm sure you guys are all wondering what exactly SGI is and what Sokka Gakkai is. I have been interested in Sokka Gakkai for some time as well, and a new book about it has been recently published, 12 Important Persons of Post-War Japan, written by Ikegami Akira, Japan's famous journalist. This book has Daisaku Ikeda as one of the 12 important individuals, who is the third president of Soka Gakkai. Soka Gakkai exerts big enough influence. There are 8 million believers in Japan. SGI, which is Soka Gakkai International, has 12 million SGI members in 192 countries and territories. Soka Gakkai also has influence over the Japanese political scene. Komeito, one of the political parties in Japan run by Soka Gakkai. Mr. Ikegami addressed this problem on the talk show by asking the party member of Komeito about how the political party collects votes and how it practices separation of religion and politics. People were shocked by Ikegami's direct line of questions and they started to admire him. That was one of the reasons he became famous. So before I begin, the purpose of this video is to tell you about how Soka Gakkai has reached the current state. I believe such knowledge is beneficial to you. It is not about praise or oppose, this is a fact. Mr. Ikegami was also accused of the same thing. His line of questions was clearly against the religious group, but he also increased awareness of Soka Gakkai. So some suspected that Ikegami was actually a member of Soka Gakkai, but he say he isn't in his book. His grandmother was a member of Soka Gakkai. So what is Soka Gakkai? First of all, it is a religious movement, but many people don't know that Buddhism is the origin of Soka Gakkai. So it is based on Buddhist principles. It's a natural thing that you couldn't guess it because the name Soka Gakkai is indeed confusing. So in Japanese is create, ka is value, gaku is study, and kai is society. It's hard to tell if it's an academic institution or a religious movement, but now you know it. It's based on Buddhism. Do you know about the several new Buddhism movement in Kamakura period? That's from 1185 to 1333. There were people like Saicho and Kukai who founded practices of Buddhism, but at that time it was only for a selected group of people who could be saved. So this new Buddhism emerged as a reaction to that. It made salvation easy for normal people and not only for the rich. The 6 new Buddhism are these: Nichiren-shu, Jodo-shu, Jodo-shin-shu, Rinzai-shu, Soto-shu, Jishu. By the way, shu means religion in Japanese. These can be classified into 2 categories. One category emphasizes chanting, while the other emphasizes meditation. Rinzai-shu and Soto-shu belong to the second category, which is Zen Buddhism, or just Zen in short. Other emphasize chanting phrases like Nam-myoho-renge-kyo or Namu-Amida-butsu. So those are the 2 categories, those who speak and those who sit down. Soka Gakkai is based on Nichiren-shu. Nichiren-shu is founded by a person named Nichiren. Nichiren was quite different from other founders of Buddhism. He was strongly against others. Nichiren-shu teaches its believers the importance of chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. On the other hand, Jodo-shu, Jodo-shin-shu, Jishu, the 3 practices which are closely related to one another, teach their believers to chant Namu-Amida-butsu. So they are both chants. Namu means I believe. I believe in something. That's what Namu means. And Myoho-renge-kyo means scripture. So when you combine them together, it means I believe in Myoho-renge-kyo. The chant itself is a proclamation of faith, and it makes yourself stronger. By chanting this, they can be saved by Myoho-renge-kyo scripture, a Buddhist scripture called Lotus Sutra. Nichiren said that Lotus Sutra is the only accepted Buddhist scripture. Other scriptures are flawed. Chanting Namu Amida Butsu won't save you. Nichiren attacked other practices of Buddhism this way. So the difference lies in what comes after, I believe. Nichiren said that because other practices are flawed, they bring chaos to the nation. He told this in his book Nissho Ankokuron and submitted this book to Tokiori Hojo, the leader of the country at that time, who gained power. Sir, if you don't choose Nichiren Shu as the national religion, a series of disasters will ruin this country. Lord Hojo, a man named Nichiren sent this book to you. And he read the book. The book read like this. There are many practices of Buddhism that teach wrong kinds of chant. But the true form of chant is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. That is the only road to salvation. We are witnessing many national disasters these days. The scarce rain and decrease in crop production are all due to flawed religious practices. If people don't start following the teachings of Nichiren Shu, Japan will be invaded by another country. Tokiori Hojo got mad because of this threat. Who is this guy, Nichiren? Take him to an island. How dare he threaten me with the prospect of an invasion? But an interesting turn of event happened to Nichiren. Japan did get invaded by a foreign country, the Mongol invasion. Mongol invaded Japan 2 times during this event. The whole country was shocked by the invasion. And people remembered Nichiren's prophecy. Wait, didn't Nichiren tell us that we would be invaded? He was right. Whether he actually predicted or he just got lucky, it's up to you to believe which one was the case. But Nichiren's prophecy did become real, and that much is a historical fact. Nichiren returned from the island and he eventually died, but his followers continued to spread and practice his teachings. That's why Nichiren Shu still remains in our time. Most religions diverge over time. Islam is divided into Sunni and Shia. In fact, there are multiple versions of Christianity, including the Church of England, Russian Church, and Eastern Church. Nichiren Shu went through a similar process over time. There were 6 followers who were close to Nichiren. Nichiren gave them names, all of which started with Nich. Your name is Nich this and Nich that. So there were 6 Nichis. There were Nisho, Nichiro, Nikko, Nikko, Nicho, and Nichiji. The 5 of them shared similar opinions and views, but one of them then didn't. His name was Nikko. He started his own practice called Nichiren Shoshu, and the rest of them continued to spread Nichiren Shu. Shu means a religion, by the way. How are they different? They are different in details, according to Kigami. Each religion views Nichiren in its own way. When asked about the importance of Nichiren in their religions, Nichiren Shu views Nichiren as a great teacher who is yet to become a Buddha. But in Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren is believed to have become a Buddha. In Nichiren Shu, Nichiren is called Nichiren Shonin, and in Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren is called Nichiren Daishonin. Daishonin means he is a great saint, so that's one of the differences. Now the topic of the video is Soka Gakkai, not Nichiren Shu or Nichiren Shoshu. Soka Gakkai is based on Nichiren Shoshu. It all happened in the Showa period, that is 1926 through 1989. In the Showa period, there was a person named Tsunesaburo Makiguchi. He was a teacher. He started out as an elementary practice teacher. Then he got promoted to the principal. A person named Josei Toda was found by Makiguchi, and Makiguchi hired him as a teacher. They became very close. Makiguchi had his own view on how to teach students. At the age of 58, he met a person who believed in Nichiren Shoshu. He learned the Buddhist principles of Nichiren Shoshu from him, and he was amazed by them. So in his 50s, he was an educator with his own philosophy. And he met a person from Nichiren Shoshu whose teaching were impressive. From that point on, he became a religious person, and he persuaded Toda to join Nichiren Shoshu as well. You have to join Nichiren Shoshu. This will change your life. So Toda joined the religion as well. 2 educators joined Nichiren Shoshu. From that point on, Makiguchi developed his own ideology that mixed Buddhist principles with his philosophy called Soka pedagogical system. The purpose of life is to create value. Creating value is the most important thing in life. They eventually created an organization called Value Creating Education Society. As you can see, the word education is in it. So it started out as a group of teachers who believed in Nichiren Shoshu, but they faced trouble during the World War II. What exactly happened? During the World War II, the authorities established a religious belief system called State Shinto. The government forced the entire citizens to believe in Shinto. Shinto is based on everyone was forced to believe it was true. The purpose of it was to unite the nation under one religious belief system. It was the period of state Shinto. Useful beliefs were taken from Buddhism, then it was suppressed. Value-creating education society, which was based on Buddhism principles, was also persecuted. The authorities ordered every citizen to keep a talisman from the Ise Grand Shrine. It was distributed to religious groups in Japan. Most religious groups decided to obey the order and kept the talisman, but Makiguchi defied the order. This was a bold move. He and Toda got arrested on charges of breaking the peace preservation law. Makiguchi died in prison due to malnutrition, and the war ended. Makiguchi was no longer alive to lead Value Creation Education Society. People started to reject Shintoism, which they were forced to believe during the war. State Shinto is nothing about religious propaganda. Value Creation Education Society grew rapidly in the atmosphere. People fell in love with it because it stood against state Shinto. They stuck to their beliefs even in the face of imprisonment. Everything went well for Value Creation Education Society. Toda became a second president. He was still alive. He immediately worked on rebuilding the organization. Value Creation Education Society was initially a small group of educators. He changed the group into a more inclusive religious organization, which is legally recognized by the state. Soka Gakkai was born then. Toda founded Soka Gakkai in 1951 when he became the second president. He engaged in explosive recruitment. His goal was to have at least 750,000 households join Soka Gakkai. Nobody believed he could achieve such a grand goal, but he eventually did it. There were many propagation efforts. One effort was shakubuku. It's to expound Buddhism and to help people join as a member. Believers were taught that the more people they convert, the better prize awaits in the afterlife, because making them happy will make you happy. This sometimes led to aggressive acts of shakubuku, and that sometimes became an issue when believers surrounded a non-believer and kept pursuing that person until he agreed to sign up. Of course, it wasn't always like that. And Zadankai, this is discussion meetings. Each meeting consists of roughly 10 people in which they talked about their personal problems and were asked to join Soka Gakkai. Also, the newspaper Seikyo Shimbun was launched around them. Toda brought about many changes. He grew the small group of believers into a big religious movement. What is religion exactly? We need to understand history, Buddhism, religion, and politics to better understand. And we need to ask ourselves the question, is it fair for a religious group to be closely associated with a political party? Back then, Komeito didn't exist yet. It started as a cultural division of Soka Gakkai. It attempted to make one of their people a politician. Having a politician inside would give them more political power, and it would make it easy for them to achieve their goals. So their plan was this. First, increase the number of believers by engaging in aggressive shakubuku. Second, use those believers to increase their political influence. Third, and this was their final goal at that time, make Nichiren Shoshu the official national religion in Japan. In fact, this has been one of their primary goals for a long time, according to this book. This goal had been mentioned multiple times in their newspaper Seikyo Shimbun. What do you think was the most important thing to make one of their people a politician? Many votes, of course, so they tried to increase the number of believers. They propagated the teachings really hard to make Nichiren Shoshu the national religion. In 1958, Toda died, and the third current president, Daisaku Ikeda, was inaugurated a couple years later. He was born in Tokyo. He moved out of his parents' house at the age of 19. He became part of Soka Gakkai after he first attended one of those discussion meetings, the Zadankai. He had many brothers. They were drafted into the army during the World War II, and one of them passed away. It was pretty common back then. His position within Soka Gakkai went up over time. He was fully devoted to Soka Gakkai 4 years before Toda died, and 2 years after Toda's death, he was inaugurated. Ikeda kept most of the goals set by Toda. Naturally, He ordered even more aggressive shakubuku to increase their political influence, and the coalition of fair politics was turned into an official political party called Komeito. But the way they collected votes was controversial. Some of the voters were F voters, or votes from friends. There was nothing particularly wrong about the believers voting for Komeito. They also persuaded their friends to vote for Komeito. It was kind of similar to shakubuku. The believers were told that even if they failed to shakubuku their friends, they could still get one step closer to Buddha by persuading their friends to vote for Komeito. It was a controversial way to collect votes. Soka Gakkai increased their political influence this way. There was another problematic incident too. Freedom of the press was infringed by Komeito. There was a person named Fujiwara. He was a political critic and a professor at Meiji University. He wrote a book that heavily criticized Soka Gakkai. He was going to publish it. Komeito found out about this. They read the book and found out Ikeda was heavily criticizing this book. Komeito decided to stop the publishing of this book. They sent people to bookstores and publishing company. It's saying that please don't publish this book of this author. Please don't sell this book at your bookstore. The book severely hurt Soka Gakkai's reputation. The leader of Komeito, Takeichi, also asked Kakue Tanaka to stop the publishing of the book. Tanaka was the Secretary General of the Jiminto. To stop Fujiwara from publishing his book, Tanaka wasn't a prime minister yet, but he was a powerful politician. People loved him. Tanaka called Fujiwara, "Who is this?" "This is Kakue Tanaka. I'm calling you to ask you not to publish your book." He actually made such a phone call. Fujiwara wasn't so happy about this. He got a phone call from the Secretary General of a political party asking him not to publish his book. Who would think that this is just a personal favor? It sounds and feels like a political pressure. Fujiwara thought Komeito was behind this act and that Komeito was infringing freedom of the press. Fujiwara kept writing his book and went on to publish the book. And that book revealed Komeito's act to the entire Japan. People started to doubt the integrity of Komeito. Daisaku Ikeda publicly apologized for the act committed by Komeito. Then what happened next? Ikeda officially announced a new rule that forbade a key person within Komeito to also hold an important position within Soka Gakkai. So Ikeda separated the two organizations, but Soka Gakkai still supported the political party. It was a separation of religion from politics, but in a half-hearted way. Soka Gakkai was criticized for one other reason. I told you that its goal was to turn Nichiren Shoshu into a national religion. People started to criticize this goal, so they argued that it was no longer their goal. We did try to do that in the past, but now we don't. I guess they had to abandon their goal. The existence of a national religion, by definition, means that the nation forces its citizens to have a certain religion. Japanese people have strong feelings against this, especially after the state Shinto. So Soka Gakkai denied that they had such a goal and apologized to the public. But as they were denying this, they started to have problems with Nichiren Shoshu. Nichiren Shoshu was mad because they thought Soka Gakkai wrongly represented them. Like I told you, Soka Gakkai is based on Nichiren Shoshu. It is a religious organization for the purpose of propagating the teachings of Nichiren Shoshu. In a way, the Soka Gakkai belongs to Nichiren Shoshu, and Soka Gakkai even built a temple of Nichiren Shoshu in the city of Fujinomiya, Shizuoka. So Nichiren Shoshu wasn't happy when Soka Gakkai wrongly represented them. Two religious organizations started to battle over who represents who. Daisaku Ikeda used to say in his public speeches that Soka Gakkai was based on Nichiren Shoshu. Nichiren Shoshu didn't like this. They thought Ikeda was being too arrogant. They fought for a long time, almost for a decade, and they eventually broke apart. Even at the fundamental level, their teachings were different. Like I said, all religions diverge at some point. They started from the same origin, which was Nichiren, but now they become vastly different. Soka Gakkai officially announced that they were no longer connected to Nichiren Shoshu, and this worked out well for Soka Gakkai, ironically. For this incident, the believer had to have faith over both in Nichiren and the president. But after the separation, they only had the faith in the president. It became a simple belief system, which led to the increase of the number of believers. That's quite interesting. After all these troubles, on 1975, SGI was formed on the island of Guam, and it spread to 192 countries after that, including making a university in California in 1987. Their presence in the US has increased a lot, and in 2015, not only SGI was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize, but SGI also attended the first ever Buddhist conference at the White House. Back to Japan politics. Komeito finally became a ruling party. That was 1993, the time of Prime Minister Morihiro Hosokawa. Komeito won the election, although they cut it close. How could they win the election? Komeito was first founded in it had been 76 years after the war. Jiminto is a party that has been ruling Japan for 72 years. Only 4 years were when Jiminto was not the ruling party in Japan. There was another big party called Shakaito. The battle between these two parties lasted for a long time, which was referred to as the 55-year system. But over this long period of time, there were people belonging to neither of those parties. Those people looked for smaller parties, like Komeito. Prime Minister Hosokawa won the election in 1993 because the power of the coalition of those small parties finally exceeded the power of the big Jiminto. There were 8 parties within the coalition. I'm not going to mention all the names of the parties, but Komeito was definitely part of it. After losing the election, Jiminto started to criticize Komeito. Let's talk about the separation of religion and the politics. Did you guys collect the votes in a fair manner? Please explain the F vote. Isn't it against the law? The Jiminto attacked Komeito based on those grounds. Things didn't go good for Komeito because of the terrorist attacks that had occurred committed by Aum Shinrikyo, which was a religious cult. People were highly suspicious of religious movements and cults in general. Jiminto even tried to pass a bill that would suppress the influence of religions within society. But things has changed after that. Jiminto initially criticized Komeito because Komeito was part of the coalition party against Jiminto, but after 5 years, Jiminto stopped attacking Komeito altogether. It even apologized to Sokka Gakkai. In its party paper, Jiu Shimpo, we criticized you for many things. We are truly sorry about that. Why did they change their attitude all of a sudden? People found out the reason behind their sudden change of attitude in the following year. The Jiminto and Komeito formed the coalition while Keizo Obuchi was a prime minister. So Jiminto apologized to Komeito to make this coalition possible. We need an ally. Other parties won't be on their side. How about Komeito? They apologized to Komeito because they wanted Komeito to be on their side. This happened in 1999 according to this book. The Jiuto was part of this coalition only because Jiminto worried that the coalition of just the two parties might seem a bit suspicious. From this point on, they have stuck together most of the time. So what's next? I've told you the long history of Sokka Gakkai and Komeito. The story first started in the Kamakura period, and it became real in the Showa period. Before the war, Soka Gakkai was a group of teachers who believed in Nichiren's teaching, but after the war, it became a religious movement, and now it even owns a political party in Japan. Now let's look at the relationship between Jiminto and Komeito. They have been on the same side since 1999. Some even say that Komeito is Jiminto's right hand. The analogy used in Japan to describe their relationship is this: the snow on the soles of the shoes. What happens when you walk on snow wearing shoes? Snow gets attached to the soles. It is hard to get the snow off the soles unless you bring the shoe inside and wait for the snow to melt. The snow will stay on the soles as you keep stepping on snow. The snow here is Komeito, and the shoes are Jiminto. Isn't Komeito the proverbial snow? Ikegami used this analogy to criticize Komeito on the TV show I mentioned in the beginning of this video. He asked the party member, "What do you think of this analogy?" But the party member answered the question quite wisely. "Oh, you mean the famous analogy. We intended to become the shoelaces, not the snow." So what he meant here is that the snow on the soles just stay attached to the shoes, but the shoelaces pulls the entire shoes even though they are small. He basically said that Komeito intends to lead the coalition by tweaking this analogy. Isn't that smart? It gave me a goosebump when I first heard this conversation. We intend to become the shoelaces. Right now, Komeito looks small and Jiminto looks big, but from the perspective of Jiminto, Komeito's influence is invaluable. A significant portion of the votes come from the believers of Soka Gakkai who collects F votes. In fact, many politicians in Jiminto won't win elections without those friend votes. But nobody knows how long their alliance will last. Ikeda is also an old man. Since 2010, he hasn't made any official appearances. People are wondering if his health is okay. Ikegami asks these questions a lot. And is the president Ikeda healthy? The answer from Soka Gakkai is always that the president is healthy. But no one really knows because nobody has seen him since 2010. What will happen to Soka Gakkai? Will there be a fourth president? Those are the big issues that SGI faces now. What are your thoughts? Did your attitude towards SGI change after watching my video? What is religion exactly? There are many different religions: Buddhism, Islam, Christianity. There are a relationship between the religion and the politics, and how politicians were involved in such relationship. The key here is that you need to learn history more. Only then you can form your own view on such matter. We tend to fear things that we don't understand well, so we need to have a better understanding of history, Buddhism, religion, and politics. Only then we can ask questions like, what will happen next? What is the healthy attitude towards this organization? They all begin with knowledge. Don't forget, I made this video to give you the necessary knowledge. I never meant to praise or criticize anyone here. All I wanted to do was to give you a place to start. Thanks for watching.